What's up, YouTube? It is your boy JB, and I am here today with the review for Greenleaf. This is season 5, episode 7, and the episode was titled The Seventh Day, you guys. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump into this episode review. This was a solid episode, you guys. So, let's talk about it. All right, you guys. So, let's start this episode up. We're going to talk about Zora, Sophia, and Jacob. So you guys remember in last week's episode, Zora was planning on going to New York. So she went to Jacob's room. She's talking to Jacob and she's asking him, has he talked to Clam about, speaking to her cousin yet? And Jacob was like, Zora, your mama just left, so give it some time. So she says, but Daddy, my flight leaves. He said, Zora, cancel the flight. Your mother and I will get you on another flight, like cancel that damn flight. So then she shows him this this studio apartment that she's found. And he says, okay, Zora, I'll take a look at it. So then we do see Jacob later in the episode, and Jacob called Clam to ask Clam about, when she sold that land to City on the Hill, did she actually know that they were Harmony and Hope and Harmony, whichever one it was? He tells her that, them not knowing depends, they need this information because they had this injunction that is dependent on him not knowing. And she tells him she knew. And he was like, well, thank you, Clam, for nothing. So then we see Sophia and Zora. So Sophia and Zora in Sophia's room, and Zora is asking Sophia to ask Grace for some money. And I'm like, why is she asking Sophia to ask Grace? Well, the reason that she's asking her is because Zora wants Sophia to ask Grace because she wants Sophia to come to New York with her. And Sophia's like, why don't you just wait for your mom and dad? And she's like, why don't you just ask your mama? And she's like, well, you told my mom that I sent Dante those titty pics. And she was like, so that's what this is all about. And then, Sophia was like, so you're just using me? She's like, I thought it would be a good idea for you to come. Yes and no. Like, I do need the money, but I also thought it would be a good idea for you to come as well. And actually, while we're talking about the kids, let's just add AJ into this situation as well. So we see AJ. So AJ is at the house, and Bishop asked him, AJ asked Bishop, was he okay? He says, why do you ask that? He says, isn't today the big day? Well, the day that the church is, torn down. He says, no matter what, this is the day that the Lord made and I will rejoice in it. And he says, okay. So then, he says, I'm assuming you're here because of the call. He said, yeah, I was going to start on it. So he says, okay, well, I'll meet you down in half an hour. So then we see Bishop. He meets up with AJ in the shed. And, AJ has not done anything with this car, much like Bishop. So then, Bishop's like, oh, please don't tell me you're another doubter like your sister is. So then they have this whole conversation about AJ getting saved, and Bishop tells him it's pretty easy. It's a lot easier than building this car. And he says, whenever you want to get saved, I'll be right there to see that smile. I'm like, what? It's so nice to actually see a different side of AJ. It really, truly is nice. But let us move on. All right, you guys. Next, let's talk about Bishop and May. So Bishop went into to the room with Lady May. He has this tray, to serve her breakfast in bed. So she opens it and it's a ring. And I'm assuming it's a ring that he proposed, it's a previous engagement ring. And, she says, where did you get this, James? He says, well, it was in a safe, May. And she says, this is his hopes of moving up the wedding date. She says, oh, James, I hope that we could get on one accord. She says, as long as you refuse to consider how to handle Tara and that first will, then we can't move forward with anything. And I'm like, come on, May. Stop letting this will get in between you and Bishop and Tara James at that, and also her sister, Rachel Rochelle. So, she says that, they will have to compromise now that Rachel Rochelle is involved once again. And she says, they can sell the land north of the road, about 10 miles of it, and give that money to Tara James. And I'm like, I was with Bishop, so I'm like, so this is hush money? He said he didn't do anything, and I actually believe Bishop. So she's like, no, that's not what it is. I'm like, yes, it is what it is, May. You want this man to pay for something that he did not do, and he's adamant that he didn't do it, but we're still going to pay for it. Cool. Not really. So, yeah, he tells her that it just doesn't make any sense. So May tells him, well, the wedding will have to wait until Flag Day. I'm like, come on, May. So then we do see Lady May, and she is with Tara. And, Tara is talking to her about, well, actually, Lady May is giving Tara this, paperwork. And, Tara's like, well, did the bishop sign off on this? And, May says, well, it's not really his preference. And then, Tara says, well, Wretched Rochelle is not going to consider this offer. And May's like, it's not even worth a try. She's like, I wanted to talk. I actually, suggested money, but that's not what Wretched Rochelle wants. What she wants is a victory, and in that victory, she wants for Bishop to say that he did it. And Lady May says that's not going to happen because he didn't do it. And she was like, well, basically we're at a standstill. And Lady May is a lot better than me because I probably would have slapped the shit out of her. Just keeping it real, I probably would have slapped the dog shit out of her ass. Let us move on. All right, you guys, now let's get to the creme de la creme of this episode. I don't give a fuck how long this review is. This episode, we got a lot in it. So we see Grace. This is the beginning of the episode, and Grace, she picked Darius up from the police station because he was being held because the night before he was, on PCP. They pulled him over. He resisted arrest and he tried to kung fu kick their ass. So Grace tells, not Grace, but Darius tells Grace that he'll pay her back. She's like, you lost your job because of this story. She says, no, you don't have to do that. It's all good. It's fine. And, he says, well, I'm going to go meet with that family. That said that they would have a conversation with me about, Edenvale lending. He says, do you want to come? She says, no, I can't come because I'm actually meeting up with Aaron. He says, why are you meeting with Aaron? She says, because we're trying to get an injunction to, stop them tearing down the church. She says, because when it came down to City of the Hill, they never disclosed to Jacob or Carissa that they were part of, Harmony and Hope, or Hope and Harmony, whichever one it is. So she's hoping that they can get an injunction. So where do I want to go to now? Because we got deep into this shit in this episode. I try not to cuss with this episode, but I try not to cuss with Greenleaf, but I end up doing it anyways. So we see Wrinkle White Asparagus. Wrinkle White Asparagus, aka Judy with 2 E's, is just something seriously annoying to me. It's just something about that woman that just bothers me. She's just so eager to, just tear down the church. Can we blow something up? And, we got Phil and Fernando there. And I thought that was Fernando in last week's episode when he pulled up on Grace, but I wasn't positive, so I didn't see it in the video because I didn't want to be wrong. So, Greasy Negro and, like I said, Greasy Negro and Fernando are there. Now, Fernando is telling them that, Bob wants them to hold off on doing any kind of demolition until he gets there. So then Grace and Aaron show up saying that, they have to cease and desist because they have a temporary injunction. And Fernando says, because Aaron says this is on the basis of fraud. And, Fernando says on who's being held, who is it against? He says it's against City of the Hill because they didn't divulge to Jacob or Clam that they were a part of Harmony and Hope, Hope and Harmony, whichever one it is. He says, is that what they said? And, Grace is like, yes, my brother is willing to go before a judge and say that, he didn't know. And Fernando's like, well, he might not have known, but your sister-in-law, oh, she absolutely knew. And then, he's going deeper, he's hinting that, she was really happy about it. I'm like, Fernando, are you forgetting that you gave her chlamydia? Have you forgotten that? Because I haven't. I definitely have not forgot that you gave her chlamydia. So then Grace called Jacob and she asked him, like, did chlamydia, that's what Ashley calls her, chlamydia. I'm calling her Clam. Did Clam, ever know about, the fact that City of the Hill was, part of Harmony and Hope, Hope and Harmony, whichever one it is? He says, I don't think so, but I'll definitely call her and verify with her. And, and I've already discussed that he called her and verified that she didn't know. So then Noah shows up, and Noah tells Grace that he found the caretaker that was on, in the cabin before him. So then we do see Grace and Noah. So they go over to the caretaker's house, and they're talking to him. And he says he always wondered, because he said that when it come down to Miss Davis and Daryl James, they would always argue. And I'm sorry, but I would have beat the shit out of the caretaker with the way he was talking. I know you can't get rid of racism. I know you don't outgrow. I mean, you can change it, but at his old ass age, I'm guessing he's stuck in his ways of racism, because he said, and these are his words verbatim, he always wondered how a poor Negro man could think he could talk to a rich white woman like that. I'm like, a poor Negro man? Oh, okay. Let your racism flag fly. Let it fly high. So then, he says that, Mrs. Davis would send him away, but he would always end up coming back. So Grace asked, I think his name is Otis. I'm like, wow, he's white, he's racist, but he got a black ass name, Otis. The blackest of the blackest names, Otis. So, she asked him, was Mrs. James and Daryl having enough, were they lovers? He said, lovers? No, that could never be. And they were like, why is that? Because he's black? And, well, he says he hopes not. And they were like, why is that? Because he's black? Oh no, that ain't what it is. Because he spilled the beans that Daryl James is Mrs. Davis' son. I was like, oh shit. Now that I didn't see coming. Did not see that one coming whatsoever. So, back at the Greenleaf Manor, we see Bishop and Charity. They're watching the news, and on the news, they're discussing the fact that Bob is, not at the church yet, but once he does get to the church, he's going to announce his candidacy for Senate. And then, Meg comes in and talks about, what fresh hell is this? And, they talk about it. And, Bishop was talking about how evil he was. And, Grace was like, not Grace, but Meg was like, no, he's not. And then Grace comes in and she tells Bishop and May that, Daryl James was actually Mrs. Davis's son. And Charity's like, I thought she wasn't married. She said she wasn't. She just had a child out of wedlock. And they were like, well, who's the father? Nobody knows. So then, Bishop is like, he wants to call Wretched Rochelle and Tara and have them come over to the house. And May is like, there is no way that I'm inviting Wretched Rochelle into my house. But we do see them over at the house, and May and Bishop, more so May, she's telling them that, it appears that and I just found out this information, but it appears that Mrs. Davis might be their grandmother. And, they'll do a blood test and, they'll probably exhume her body. Ew. Damn, y'all want to dig up a corpse? So, May says that, if DNA proves that, you guys are her grandchildren, we'll concede the house to you. So, and I actually forgot to just mention this. Charity left because she said she was going to go fight for if they're going to lose the house, at least she can fight for the church. So Jacob comes in and he says that Charity sent out an email saying that they want the truth about Bob and Edenvale lending to meet at the church. And, Wretched Rochelle is once again on this whole thing of she wants the truth out of Bishop. So Bishop says, if you want the truth, come to the church with us and I'll give you the whole God-blessed truth. And that's where we're going to pause right here and move forward. All right, you guys, now this is probably going to be lengthy. So, at the church, Darius intercepts Grace. He tells Grace that he did meet with that family, and they told him that Edenvale Lending basically promised them this and that, and the minute that they couldn't make a payment, they would call in. They called the fine print, and they took the house from them. So Grace says, well, did they say anything about Gladys DeMars? He says, well, they don't necessarily remember Gladys DeMars, but her name is all over the contract. And he says Yusuf is, ready to confirm everything. So then, he asks, where's Bob? She says, Bob is inside doing damage control. So we do see Bob inside. He's talking to the whole congregation, and he's basically trying to dispel that email that Charity has sent out to the congregation. He's trying to make it like, Edenvale Lending was there to help people, whenever they needed money, they could get the money, and it will help them get ahead of their, on top of their bills. And Bob sounded a whole lot like YSAP. Shout out to my girl Roxanne. Like him talking, he sounded literally like YSAP. So, Charity, and he was trying to dispel everything that Charity said. And Charity said, well, why was, almost 100% of your clients black people? He says, where'd you get that number from? And Darius and Grace come inside, and they said, well, we got the number from these loans that we have here, about 240 something odd loans. And, and then, they say, why did you use a black woman to, do the sales calls? And she's also the signatory for every single loan. So at this point, and, she said Gladys Damaras. And at this point, Bob is like, he didn't facilitate any of that. He didn't okay it. I'm like, ooh, greasy Negro. You really gonna sit here and let Bob talk shit about your mama like that? Like, I'm sorry. Ain't nobody finna throw my mama under the bus. Alive or dead. Nobody was ever gonna throw my mama under the bus like that. And I'm just like, this nigga is just literally gonna sit here and let this white man throw his mama under the bus. Like, literally, you gonna sit here and let this nigga throw your mama under the bus? Well, he's not a nigga. But you gonna let this man throw your mama under the bus. You ain't shit. So, Greasy Negro, I guess he had enough of hearing about his, hearing him talk, badly about his mom. So Greasy Negro does get up and he says to the congregation, he was like, he always wondered why his mom said when she was on her deathbed that, she felt like God would never forgive her. He asked her, what was she talking about? But she never said. But now he knows exactly what, what she was talking about. And, Bob thought he was getting up and talking in his honor. Nah, he wasn't doing that. So then he asked Wrinkled White Asparagus, AKA Judy, with 2 E's for a ring back. So, she gets up and she takes the ring off. Well, actually, she says, what the hell? He says, give me my mother's ring. So she takes the ring off and she throws it on the ground. I would have literally made her pick that ring up. But you know what? He's better than me. No, he's not. Actually, he's not better than me. So then, Bob is still talking to the congregation. And he's talking about the fact that, Bishop took advantage of them. And while he's saying that, Bishop comes in and Bishop says, yes, I did take advantage of you guys. I took advantage of your faith in me, and I took advantage of your hopes. And I used that in the process and I got fat in the process and happy. So then, Bishop starts, just telling them the truth about everything. He tells them how the church came about because, Mrs. Davis left him that will, had left him the house in the will. And, he says that Mac, he sent Bishop over to Mrs. Davis' place because Mrs. Davis was not allegedly, according to Mac, Mrs. Davis was childless and she wanted to do something good with her home. But Bishop did not know that there was a first will prior to this one, leaving the house to Daryl James. And, Bishop says, with that house and the will, he was able to use the will as collateral to get that building. And then, he mentions the fire with he says, because Mrs. Davis didn't, she mentioned the fire and Daryl James. And, he should have been able to put 2 and 2 together, but he didn't. And I'm like, am I putting 2 and 2 together? Am I to interpret what I think Bishop is saying? Am I to interpret what Bishop, tell me if I'm wrong, you guys, but from what I was interpreting, it sounds like, damn, if what I'm interpreting is right, she was fucked up. So Daryl James was her son. Did she did she call him down to the church and set that church on have someone set the church on fire and kill her own son? If she did, she was truly cold hearted. So, Bishop, he's just letting all his sins out there on the table for them. And I mean, I was just sitting there like just in amazement. Like, I'm like, God, is he speaking to me? But it was so good. It was a powerful speech that he gave. At the end of it, Bob, Wrinkle White Asparagus, aka Judy with 2 E's, and Fernando, they dipped out. And what am I missing? Oh, Connie and her wig, sitting there looking extra super crunchy. I'm like, yo, I can't stand it huzzy. So, after all this is said and done, Wretched Rochelle, she's leaving the church, and Grace falling behind her. And, Grace says, well, I mean, now you can have the house. And Wretched Rochelle says, that's not what I wanted. I never wanted the house, Grace. What I wanted was what I just got, and that was the truth. And then Grace thanks her for, AJ. She says, I know that you gave AJ Noah's number in spite of me, but it actually was a blessing. So thank you. So then, we see Charity and Greasy Negro following in behind her. He's talking about how he loves Charity, how he wants to, can he see her tomorrow? I was like, Charity, girl, if you are not, I'm like, if you do what I think you're going to do, you will look so stupid. But Charity proved me wrong. She said, no, JB, I ain't stupid. I'm very smart. She says, no one has hurt me, not even like you have, not even my ex-husband. So she says, no, never, and walks away. I'm like, there you go, Charity. In the last episode before the series finale, you redeem yourself. Ain't that a goddamn shame? 4 years, 5 seasons. Girl. But okay, I guess so. So then we see Zora, she was packing, and then Sophia went to talk to Grace. And Sophia told Grace about the titty pics. And Grace knew nothing about these titty pics. I'm like, oh shit. So Zora didn't tell her, and you just spilled the beans on your damn self. Wow. All right. And also talking about Grace, we saw her with Darius. Darius got a phone call from CBS, and they said that, Bob's story has gone public, and Bob is stepping down from H&H. And, they share a kiss with each other. And then lastly in the episode, we see Lady May. Lady May is getting all sexy for Bishop, and so she goes into the room with Bishop, and she tells Bishop, we can get married tomorrow. I told you no earlier for my own little, my own personal issues. And then she looks at, when I saw this scene, I'm like, when I saw her in the bed, putting her lotion on and putting her perfume, I'm like, she gonna go in there and Bishop is gonna be dead in that bed. But he wasn't. But then when I saw him, his eyes were closed. I'm like, no, he ain't dead sitting up like that. Because a dead body's not gonna sit up like that. I'm like, he's either having a heart attack or he's having a stroke. And I was correct. Bishop was having a stroke. And I'm like, May, call fucking 911. Give him CPR. Do whatever you gotta do. She did call 911, but that was before he asked her to give him a pen. And then he wrote down, I do. And you guys, when I tell you guys, I cried so damn hard at that scene. The tears were just flowing. But you guys, that is gonna do it for this episode review of Greenleaf. Be sure to like this video, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification button so you guys are aware when I drop anything else. Share this video, and until the next one, you guys do me a solid favor. Take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, stay hydrated, and I will see you guys later. Bye.